in those years that I was dreaming of starting my own business and wishing that I was more successful in my career and things like that, I would go on LinkedIn. This was in the early days of LinkedIn, and I would just I would stay up until like 3, 4 a.m. looking at the success of other people, going, why aren't I successful like these people? Like it was terrible.
Breaking rules is how we grow. No limits, no
All right. It's nice to have you on, Josh, on Building Iconic. And it's a privilege to get to chat with you. And I think that we're going to learn so much from you and your career that you've had. And I just want to start off by just tell us about what you've built and how it kind of came to formation.
Sure. Well, I'm really happy to be here because I think it was a couple of years ago, you reached out to me on LinkedIn and you were like, hey, would you advise me? I'm starting a company and would you advise me? And I was really touched by that you would think I would be a good advisor. But I was like, I don't have the time to do this, but I'll be rooting for you from afar. And I've been following all of your posts since then, thinking like, this is my friend, even though like we only had that one conversation over DM. And I've been really enjoying watching what you're building. And so I just want to say that. But in terms of what I'm doing, so I started Goldfront about 11 years ago. And the reason why I did it was I wanted to start a company my whole life, but I was afraid to. So I always dreamed, as soon as I got into doing this type of work, I wanted to have an agency and I would dream about it, but I was afraid that it would fail. I was like, if it fails, I'll be humiliated. Everybody will know that I'm a failure. So I literally I started this work in my 20s, and I don't think I started actually doing my own business until I was in my mid 40s. So that's how much fear held me back. So I'm really happy to be doing it now. It's probably the best decision that I ever made. But basically, Goldfront does business strategy, positioning, and brand design, mostly for startups and tech companies, although we serve some other companies as well. And, the thing that I love more than anything is chasing my dreams and then helping other people chase their dreams. And in my heart, I get really, really competitive about it. It's like, I want to win. I want my thing to win. I want my clients to win. I'm going to compete. We're going to crush the competition. That's what I'm always thinking about. And I think if you have that mindset of wanting to win, then you figure out like, okay, well, what's going to be the most effective way? Like, what is the best stuff that I could do to help my clients win? And a lot of that is just certain ways of going about business strategy, and then certain ways of going about creative execution as well. And so that's what we try to do.
Yeah. How did you get over the fear? Like what happened that finally you were like, I'm going to do this thing?
Well, let's see. I'm 56 now, and when I was 30, I had a kind of a nervous breakdown, and I just realized like, oh wow, so many things in my life were not going well, and a lot of it was attached to things that happened when I was a kid. And so I basically just started working on myself. That was the biggest project of my life since I was 30, right? So I started doing a lot of therapy. I actually went to therapy 5 days a week. I was in psychoanalysis. And then I started doing a lot of meditation retreats and things like that. And so really that fear just very, very slowly subsided. Like it literally took, 15 years for the inhibition of, oh, what if I fail? And then everybody's going to know I'm a failure and, it's going to be humiliating. And, it took 15 years for that to go away, but I still had it even when I was about to start Goldfront. And I remember just thinking like, you're going to die. This would be a really, really ridiculous reason not to like follow your dream, not to start your business because you're afraid of what other people are going to think or say. So I kind of just had a tough love talk with myself. And then I just went forward with it.
I always, I mean, I think that there's this preconceived notion that when you're building something and you're creating something, that the people doing it don't have fear. And that's
Mhm,
just not true. Like, you
mhm,
just do it anyways.
mhm.
And I often tell my kids, she's like, my daughter will say, I'm scared, I'm scared. And I say, well, brave people just do things with fear. Like,
Yes.
that is what it is.
Yes.
Like, we just jump in and we decide that it's scary, but we're still going to do it anyways. And I kudos to you for being like transparent about it. It's one of the things that I love about following you on LinkedIn is that I think there's this transparency about you and where you're at in saying that I built up this thing amazing and I'm not going to be ashamed of that, but I'm also going to show like the transparency of the build.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what? Like, in those years that I was dreaming of starting my own business and wishing that I was more successful in my career and things like that, I would go on LinkedIn. This was in the early days of LinkedIn, and I would just like, I would stay up until like 3, 4 a.m. looking at the success of other people, going, why aren't I successful like these people? Like, it was terrible. And, um, I wanted, I just always wanted to make sure that if I was what people would maybe kind of objectively consider successful, that I would never give off the vibe that somehow this is something that other people can't do, you know, that I would try to bring other people along as much as I could.
I love that. And what, when as you're building as you're building Goldfront, what are some strategies and kind of core principles that you had along the way of different phases? I feel
Hmm.
like as it's starting, right? What did
Hmm.
you do in the beginning to kind of get it off its feet?
Hmm.
And what did you do in the middle? And what are you doing now? And is that different?
Uh-huh. Well, I did something very sneaky and kind of like in line with my fear at the beginning. I was freelance and I had a really good freelance career. Like I was making good money. I was mostly as a writer in those days. Um, and I would, I'd be hired to write TV spots or whatever it might be. And I started telling, this was in like around 2012 or 2013. I started telling all my clients that I could only work remotely, which was not really a thing unless you were like in a different city. But I started telling all my clients I can only work remotely, um, and that way I could work on multiple clients at the same time. Like I would charge like a day rate to two different clients, and it wasn't like totally honest, but like I'd basically like just work twice as much, and I'd make twice as much that for that day because I'd be working for like two different agencies or whatever. And uh, that enabled me to basically continue making money freelance and work direct for clients. Then I started going to clients that I knew and said, "Hey, I can work direct for you." And once I started working direct for them, I turned that into Goldfront. So it was kind of like my fear of it not working out continued on after I started Goldfront because I was still like kind of freelancing, and I think probably everybody does that, but like, um, and so that was one of the most important strategies that I used was I could keep the money coming in from my freelance career, but also get this money coming in for direct to client, and that's how I established that I had a business. That was one thing. There was another phase where I like realized that I I was doing the creative work well, but didn't know business. So I spent like 2 years listening to every business podcast, reading every business book about profitability and systems and processes and things like that. And during that phase, I learned how to basically achieve like around, let's say, 25% profitability, to like 25% profit margins, which is essential to making the business work because a lot of agencies do like between 10 and 20% profit margins. So there was a phase there. And then the last thing I would say is, because you would ask me like, okay, well, what strategies did I use along the way? The last thing is we repositioned as a category design studio. And so, maybe 6 years into it, we were doing a certain amount of category strategy work. And I wrote the category POV for Qualtrics, which was a huge, it was like kind of success as a category creation story. And so I had a little bit of experience there. And when we achieved a certain amount of profitability, I thought, oh, I could sell this agency someday because it's making enough money now. And and then I was like, well, if I was going to sell this agency, like what kind of agency would I want to sell? Like how should we be configured? And I thought, okay, well, if I was going to buy an agency, what kind of agency would I want to buy? And I thought I'd want one that was like really well positioned. And so I did this big positioning exercise, like, hey, what's our positioning? And I came up with this idea of category design studio, which is basically like the business strategy and positioning of category creation and category leadership that matched with brand design and kind of like elite creative execution. And that caused our revenue to jump again by doing that. So those are three like key moments in the business that helped me grow the business and be a little bit happier. And then the last thing I wanted to say is once I've gotten happier in our positioning, I'm less likely to really want to sell the company. So I less think about selling the company now because I'm happier kind of day to day in the work.
That's great. Uh, so when you talk about the positioning, because everyone is trying to find as you're building something, the positioning is so important and how you
Hmm.
position yourself. For those who, don't work in our category of design and marketing
Hmm.
and thinking about your positioning, what would you say to them like that you did? Like, what is the strategies behind how you kind of developed your own positioning and why does your positioning work for you? Like
Hmm.
how did that positioning increase the amount of work that y'all get
Hmm.
now?
Hmm. Yeah. So, um, are you saying what would I say to agency owners or just kind of people in general?
I think when I look at building, I'm thinking about any company out there that's building their thing.
Uh-huh.
They're everyone who's out there building in tech right now. We live in the
Yeah.
Silicon Valley. Everyone building, they're all like, how do I do this thing and how do I make it
Uh-huh.
successful?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. I mean, one way to look at this is, I used to regularly do TV commercials, right? So like I'm writing the spot or I'm creative directing it, I'm going to the shoot. And when I was writing or creative directing TV commercials, we would send out um, the scripts to directors. And usually you talk to three directors and then you choose one, right? And each of those directors writes a treatment. And you read the treatments and you think it's all going to be about like, okay, who's the most artistic, who's the smartest one, who's got the most like amazing vision or whatever. But and sometimes, you have one of those three directors is just has such an amazing portfolio that you're like, we just want this person. But usually you're looking at three treatments and you go back, you talk about the one and you keep referring to the one that is different. You keep like you go, oh, the guy that wanted to do casting like backwards or wanted to do casting over a 2 week period on the Santa Monica Pier, like, or whatever it was. Like somebody would put in their treatment, like, I'm going to do this totally differently. I'm going to do it like this. And that was the treatment that we come back and talk about over and over again. And often the person that we end up hiring. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like whoever's like really sticks out as like doing something differently is the one that we would end up hiring. Um, and I think positioning is the same thing. And so for my business, originally we were a creative studio, which kind of means like, hey, we focus on creativity. We do video, brand, like a lot of like websites, a lot of different things. We don't have a lot of like strategy or account management. It's all about creativity, right? And then, we got more and more into strategy. And so we were starting to move into the area of being compared to brand studios. And, and so I just think like, if we're in a conversation with clients and they're looking at a series of brand studios, what is the thing that's going to make us stand out like those directors? And for us, we're a category design studio. We have a serious business strategy practice around category creation. It's different than brand strategy. The difference, and there's a ton of overlap, but the difference is, well, like one of the key differences is if you go to a chief product officer or a CTO at a tech company and you go, hey, this is the new brand strategy for Lovable or whatever, they will ignore it, right? They'll be like, oh, well, send me the colors, or like we'll put the colors in the product, right? They will ignore it. But if you work with them and the entire leadership team and talk about the category that you're creating, the definition of that category and what its positioning is, then you give them the strategy. At the end of that, they'll go, oh, let me see how I can change our roadmap to like really pay off on this strategy. And, there's other differences too. There's so much overlap between those two things. But I have clients now who are looking for a brand studio call us, and we go, well, we're kind of like a brand studio, but we're a category design studio. And here's what the difference is. And clients choose us for that. Like they will hire us specifically for that. And they'll also not hire us for that, which is like a great thing to know that our clients are choosing us specifically, or choosing us or not choosing us specifically on what our positioning is. And obviously our ability to pay that positioning off too. But so that's how I kind of think of positioning.
Yeah. And I do want to capture too this idea about that you mentioned the middle part of building. When you're building, and you mentioned that you're going out there and you're finding everything you can about business because you didn't understand business. And you mentioned that you read some books. So what would be like your top recommendations for books?
Let's see. There was one that I read during that time called Win Without Pitching. Have you read that?
I haven't read that one.
It's so good. It's so good. It essentially, it talks about something that's really important, which is, how when you run an agency, that people want to treat you, some clients want to treat you like you're a servant, right? They'll look down on you a little bit, or they'll be like, oh, we're going to give you this money, so we want to see you kind of, like you need to like run through some hoops or something, because like we're the people that have the money, you need the money, like, and that I don't like that. I don't like being treated like that too much, but also it compromises my ability to be a trusted advisor for their CEO if I'm being treated more like an employee as opposed to like, I'd rather my clients think of me as like a really high priced attorney that you call in when you like need the best, right? Like I have I paid like over $800 an hour for an attorney, and it's like he's not my employee by any means, right? It's more, it's almost more like I'm working for him. So, not that I don't want that feeling, but like, um, but yeah. So this Win Without Pitching book basically teaches you how to serve clients, but not give them the impression that you are like a servant or somehow lower status than them. That was a big one. Um, let's see. There's some crazy book. There's this book called the E Myth something, and that's all about systems, making things very like system oriented and repeatable and programmatic. That's a very dorky book, but it's been really useful to me. Um, yeah, I would say those two.
I love that. I'm gonna have to go read some of these books. I resonate with the feeling of, because as a creative, I went to school for creative. Like my whole college career was about being a creative. And I'm formerly classically trained in communication design. And there's no business about that. They don't teach you any business foundation, which is crazy because once you're out of school, like, the goal would be to use your creative abilities to create a business or to work in a business. But I would love to hear a little bit more about your background and like what was before Goldfront for you? And because I know that you had like kind of like a different world going on up until Goldfront. So I'm kind of curious, like, how did you work into this agency? What's your background?
Mhm. Well, I hesitate to go into all of it because I'm not sure that I'm that interesting of a human being to go into my whole history. But I will actually start way back when I graduated from college. I was very full of myself and was like, I'm never going to get a real job. I'm going to be an artist. The working world sucks. I'm too good for that. I'm going to write and direct films, and, I'm going to be the next Spike Lee or whatever it is. And I got, I became a waiter after college. I lived in Seattle, like around the time that, uh, like grunge was big. And I got like about a year after college, I started going, oh shit, I'm going to be a waiter for the rest of my life. And I'm like not writing any screenplays because I just keep procrastinating. Like, I'm not going to be the next Spike Lee. I'm just going to be a broke waiter. And so I went through the phone book, and I just started calling companies that might have anything to do with editing because I had a degree in video production, right? So I'm calling Seattle companies looking for assistant editing jobs, and one place said, "Yeah, we don't have any editing jobs, but we do have this like multimedia studio." And they were like, "Do you want to talk to them?" And I said yes. And they asked me if I knew Photoshop, and I happened to. And they asked me if I knew Illustrator, and I happened to. And they said, "Do you have a portfolio, a design portfolio?" And I was like, "Yep." And they said, "Okay, well, we'll see you. Could you come in like on Wednesday? That's 2 days from now, and show your portfolio?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll be there." And then I got off the phone, and it was like I didn't have one bit of a design portfolio at all. Um, and so I called in sick to my waiting job for the next 2 days, and I stayed up for 48 hours making a design portfolio because I was so scared that I wasn't that I was going to be a waiter for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And so yeah, that's what I did, and I actually showed up with a portfolio of work of made up. I made up a fake band called Neon Love Morgue, and a fake record label and fake advertisements and fake web page and all this stuff. I just made all this stuff up, and I showed it to them and they hired me. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got into all of this. And I think, I think because of that, I was always just thinking about like storytelling, like screenwriting, storytelling. Like I wanted everything to be kind of artistic, and I never got, I basically like was like a frustrated artist, and a dreamer, and so everything I did in the commercial world was a little too idealistic, or like in those early jobs, people aren't necessarily looking for that, and I feel like my whole career has been gravitating more and more to that place where I can be more idealistic, more of a dreamer. And now I get to work with founders who are creating something like especially these AI startups now. They're just creating amazing things. And I get to use that dreamer piece. But it was kind of like because I really wanted to be an artist and that didn't work out, but that piece of me kind of stayed with me. And I just kind of continue to try to gravitate towards that dreamer aspect my whole career, and somehow it's worked out.
Do you feel like you are an artist? Like, would you classify yourself as an artist?
I don't think I wouldn't use that word, um, because I'd be worried that other people would say I'm being full of myself. Um, but also, I really try to put money front and center in the work that I do. Like one of the things I think about a lot with my LinkedIn content or just anything that I'm putting out there is like it's love and money. It's doing that thing that's total, like that's what, entrepreneurship is about. It's doing that thing that's in your heart that's going to make you happy, but also getting paid for it. And that it's like those things in equal amounts, right? Like if as a business, if you don't have money coming in, you die. But if you can't do it in a way that's going to make you happy, it's a big waste of time. So I wouldn't say artist. It's like some cool combination of love and money for me. It's what I do.
I like that. And how, as you're building something, because I love the aspect of the love and the money, how do you kind of balance the two of those? Like, how do you fill kind of your own cup in terms of love? And I guess how we have to define like how you look at love and how that cup is full. And
Mhm.
then, I
Mhm.
feel like the financial part, because you all are successful and you've worked for successful companies, built successful companies, helped enable successful companies. So, like, that quadrant is, I'm sure, full for you, but always trying to grow. But I'm
Mhm.
kind of curious how
Mhm.
you balance the two of those.
Well, I mean, money's always on my mind. It's always on my mind for Goldfront. Like we had one of the worst months that we have had for the last 2 years this year. We also had the best month that we have ever had this year. So that is the roller coaster of having a project based business. I don't know how much are you project based? Are you 100% project based or?
We're more like we sit kind of as an in-house design team. So
Uh-huh.
we're not hired for necessarily a project. We're hired as
Mm.
kind of like a resource to help enable. So
Ah,
it's a little bit different. We do have some clients that come to us for project based, but we more of run like some of our clients have been with us for years.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, keep doing that because there's a lot of stability in that. Um, yeah. So I wouldn't say I don't feel like I got the money piece on lockdown, although I'd feel a lot happier about it and more settled with it now than I did a few years ago. But yeah, it's interesting balancing that idea of love and money. Like even with my employees, like I was just thinking usually this is not the kind of love that I mean exactly, but like I love all my employees, but I would never tell them that because I mean, I'm sure they know, but like I wouldn't tell them that because it's too much pressure to put on them, you know? And so when I'm at work, it's, it's more about like, hey, the business stuff, the things that we need to do. And there's a lot of warmth there. But it's just really interesting to try to mix those things of love and money in the workplace and trying to think about like what's appropriate in this particular situation. Like people like to say a company is not your family, right? But there's a lot of familial stuff in there that 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 it, there is a lot of stuff there that is like a family, and how do you balance that with the fact that like, but this is also a business, And then in terms of and that's actually not the kind of love I really mean. What I mostly mean by love is like, what does your heart want? What is it going to make you happy? What what's your vision for like what kind of business you want to build, and how will that serve others and also make you happy? That's kind of mostly what I mean when I say love. And for me, I think I've just tried to trust my heart more and more as each kind of year goes on. And I would say it's like a slow, I slowly get better at that over time.
Yeah. I think, I resonate with that a lot. And I think of the same, for me, part of starting Babco was to have a balance to like have this love space of like, I love being a mom and I want space and time to do that, and
Hmm.
I love being a sister and a wife. And like, how do I, not that these parts are love, but these things make my heart sing, but also
Hmm.
doing design makes my heart sing.
Hmm.
And like, how do I continue to do all of these things, but also provide enough to myself that I don't get empty,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
that I think is the
Yeah.
hardest part in all of it, because you
Uh-huh.
can't send, love can't be there if you're overwhelmed, you're over indexed. And I
Totally.
think people who are building resonate with that a whole lot. If you're building something, it's not for the faint of heart. Like you're building something. And so it's like a responsibility that you take on. It's like, how many responsibilities do you want to hold, you
Yes.
know?
Totally. Well, what I loved is you posted like a shot from the gym. You're a bodybuilder, right? Yeah. You posted that on LinkedIn, which nobody does. And I thought so cool. And the reason why I say that is because like for me, I lift weights. I'm nowhere near on the level that you are, but like that's one of those things that I use to keep myself sane and have space for myself. And I'm imagining the gym might be something similar for you.
For sure. Yeah, I think that, ironically, as I'm building, what fills me changes over time. And I can't, like, sometimes, like, for me, going to the gym is like one of those things that it fills my bucket, but it's something that I'm like, it's just fundamental. I have to do it. So I'm like,
Mm,
I have to stay healthy, and I have a certain like expectation of myself, of who I'm going to be. And I'm like, this
mm,
this matches to that. If I stop doing that, I'm not matching my own expectation of myself, and I start to feel really
mm.
bad. And so
Uh-huh.
it's almost like I've got to go, because it's like, one, it's like my health, and two, it's like it's putting me further towards the person I want to be.
Uh-huh.
Um, but lately it's like, for me, with filling my like love space, is like remembering what I've done, because I think I get into this mode of like build, 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 and then I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, and like, what did you build? Like,
Mm,
just look back and remember, because if you don't, like, for me, I could just keep building, and then I all of a sudden I look up, why am I building?
mm,
But
mhm,
then I like
mhm.
remind myself, I'm like, oh, I'm building because I take a deep breath, and I'm just gonna stop building for like
Uh-huh.
5 seconds
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and just look around.
Yeah.
And ironically, like, as much as people say, social can hurt some things, like, I find social being one of those spaces where it can enable me to kind of reset and kind of rethink, why am I building, and like putting together like an
Uh-huh.
Instagram reel. I'm like, I put
Yeah.
together an Instagram reel, and then I all of a sudden remember why I'm doing this building thing.
Yes. Totally. Totally. Yeah. I mean, When I write for LinkedIn, often I'm figuring out how to make sense of things for myself. Um, and I love that. And it's such a weird thing because social media is such a you cannot you can't help but be a little bit narcissistic when you do social media. Like you can't help but care a lot about like what other like how many likes did I get? And did people say nice things about me and do they like it? And um but at the same time it can be so generative on a deeper level that's not narcissistic if you're using it to like understand your own thinking and your own feelings and that sort of thing. And I feel like that's, it's sort of like both generative and a little bit narcissistic for me. And I'm like, I'm okay with that.
What's interesting though, in watching from the outside, what I'll say is that I want to use the word humble. There's a humbleness to your posts and just the amount of things that you share external. Like your team will do inside, you guys will do these like epic audits of different marketing flows. I think the
Uh,
last one you did was like for Claude.
um,
And it's just, for you to share that. And I always find it helpful and beneficial.
mm,
But I find I'm always looking for your post. I think one time you were gone for like a month or two, and I was like, "Where's your
mm,
post? Gone."
wow.
So like you're one of those people that I like want to follow, but there's a humbleness to it. Even though
Hmm.
you're saying you feel,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
like I
Yes.
feel like there's a humbleness to it. And even I wouldn't use the word narcissistic. I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that word for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. And um yeah, I mean, I think that's true. It's just that like for me, I don't think I can do social without starting to construct the story of me and my identity in other people's eyes, which I don't think is necessarily, the healthiest thing in the world. Like if I'm up, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I grab my phone and I see like, okay, how many likes did I get on something like that's not necessarily a healthy thing. And really, I'm just talking about my own mental health here. Like, I don't, yeah, I agree. I don't think I'm giving off, narcissistic vibes. It's more like how I relate to it myself. But also, like, I think, I think that I've learned kind of what my thing is on LinkedIn, which is in a world where people are fake, I'm trying as much as I can to be myself, but I'm also offering it up with like really good hooks and things that actually work in social. So it's like, how do I navigate all of that? How do I play the game of social in the right way that works, but also be myself? And I'm really fortunate because I found like one simple thing that works well on LinkedIn, which is in a world where people are fake, what if you just tried to be yourself, And it's just like those three directors I talked about. Like, which one is the thing that's different? It's like, I, I think to the degree that I'm successful, it's because that there's that one thing that kind of stands out about um, the stuff that I'm putting out there.
I love that. Well, keep it up because I enjoy it.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
know
you.
we have about, some time left. And I just want to make sure that we get a little bit into kind of like your personal perspective about a few things. And like, I know that like you see a whole lot of companies, and I'm
Hmm.
curious, like, what are kind of some things that you see in founders that you
Hmm.
think are really amazing kind of principles or strategies that those founders have, or even
Hmm.
tactics that they have that make
Hmm.
them successful? And even for
Hmm.
yourself, like, are there, can you give us 3 to 5 things that you would say?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, anybody that um, is dumb enough to start their own company is really courageous, right? Because there's so many reasons why the whole thing could fail. And especially for so many of our clients that are venture backed startups where the success rate is very, very small. So I applaud all of my founders' courage and the fact that they stepped into the spotlight and they want to do this in the first place. Um, when I think about advising founders, uh, I almost more think about like what gets in the way for them so I can help them with that. Um, like for example, most founders, including myself, have this incredible network of meaning around what they're doing. And they just grow that network of meaning in their minds. Like, okay, this is the product and this is the customer. And, it's this vast territory of interconnected stuff that they have. But that that proliferation of ideas gets in the way when you need to get to the point where you have to make this very, very simple for a specific audience, which is what you ultimately need to do to grow a business. You have to figure out who's our most important customer, what's the best possible pitch that we have for them, and how do we make it great. Um, and so that's a big one that I always think, they have this beautiful mind thing going on with their startup and all of their hopes and dreams and the the rational side and the product and the feelings, and so I'm there to help them pull out the most valuable pieces and put it into a really simple story. That's one thing I think about. Um, and then, you know, I, like a lot of times I'm just shocked at how much they can do, especially now that everybody has AI tools. Like I see, um, I'm starting to see teams that are 5 to 15 people that are acting like they're a company of 40 people, with the tools changing and how sophisticated founders are getting. Um, so yeah, that's another thing that's kind of amazing to watch. Do you see that?
I, you know, I want to dive into AI a little bit more with you and see what you're saying because I, I can't, because I work with such early stage companies. I think that the teams are already innately small, but I do think that you can get more done. But I will say that because you can get more done, people are just doing more things.
Hmm.
So I think there's that. There's like a combination of
Hmm.
things. So I'm curious to see so it sounds like you think companies have been getting smaller over time with
Yes.
AI.
Yes. Yeah. The earlier stage companies are smaller than they were in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Just a few
that's my
people.
ex that's my experience. Yeah. Oh, I want to talk about AI tools for agencies though, too.
Yeah. 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 Let's do it.
Okay. Um, all right. So my take on selling expertise, as many agencies like mine are, is that co- clients will not pay for all human intelligence in the future, because they will know that some of what you're doing with that your human intelligence could be done by AI for way cheaper, right? Or faster or whatever it is. And so my theory is that like in the future, every company that's expertise led like ours and is selling expertise is going to have to sell hybrid intelligence, some human, some artificial intelligence. And the trick there is being able to move fluidly between those two things. Oh, I have to do some research. I'm going to use Claude to do some really great research. Now I have to understand how that evolves into a story and something of meaning. I have to use my human mind and heart to do that piece of it. And it's the ability to move fluidly between these two things at the level of like an entire organization, like an agency, that will decide your ability to create value for clients. And so if that's right, then I basically me and my team started working on that several months ago. And part of what we did was we remade all of our processes using ClickUp so that processes are much more codified and every task is listed out in a project. And you could decide to have a human do that task, or you could decide to have AI do that task. And as we evolve and we go, oh, well, this task now can be done by AI, then we'll be able to fluidly move into, okay, these things are now being done by AI. And I expect there'll be new tasks that get added. They're like, okay, now we can have humans do this. But to me, that's in the agency game. I think that's what we need to be trying to sell, that ability to move fluidly between those two. And then the next step besides that is we've created, for everything that's text-based, we've created a tool in Claude that creates that deliverable. So for every deliverable that we have a tool in Claude that creates that deliverable, but it only gets you 75% of the way there. And you cannot have AI do the last 25% because only a human being could do that. And so that's the strategy that we're using to deal with AI. And it's both like, there's a threat from AI to agencies because we're human intelligence. And then there's an opportunity because, hey, we could drive our billable rates way up, our profitability way up, right? And I think in a way, what we're all doing is sort of surfing this. Are we on the front end of this, using it to be more profitable and do better work for clients? Or we are on the back end of this where our work is being taken away from us and we're offering less value than we were, a year ago or whatever. So that's kind of how I think about this. Does that jibe with how you're thinking of it?
I think in the beginning, I was really scared of AI and I was like, oh my gosh, it's coming for my job. And then, we started as an agency really, we work with a bunch of folk in AI, but also just diving into the tools, using the tools. And I think of AI similarly in that we do need to be using it. Like we definitely need to use it because if you're not using it, you're going to die. That is the thing. But I think that AI, when I look at it, it has enabled us to be faster. Yes. It's particularly like research and things like that. But it's enabled us to get through things faster, but it also allows us to do more work because we can do things faster. Like our clients can afford instead of, with their budget, instead of 2 things, now they can afford 10 things. So it's expanding the amount of things that we can offer as an agency, but also that our clients can afford. And so what we're seeing is that people are like companies can do, because they can do more, they're doing more. So even though AI might take some things away, it's actually adding things. Instead of being able to do a 5-page website, now you can do a 10-page website, So I think that, and I think that there's a human piece, the part that you talked about, what's different, that only a human is going to be able to do eventually, because AI systems can only do what's mediocre because that's what they're trained on. And as they continue to train on more and more things, someone has to come in and say, these things are different and these things are more designed. And I think that's the human space that we're going to continue to be those directors of what is different and the controllers of uniqueness. Even though the AIs will come in and still take that stuff because that's how they work, right? They're going to be trained on what's unique, what's different. And then we keep coming in, we're saying, this is more unique, this is more different. And we're going to have to push those barriers. And that's kind of how I look at AI. And I also remind myself that it's not happening all at once. I'm always like, it's a journey. And I feel like after talking to a bunch of people in AI that I'm doing enough, and that has calmed my fears a little bit. I'm like, I
Mm,
look around and I'm like,
mm.
okay, I'm using the latest tools. I'm ingraining these AIs into my workflows, and I'm not as scared anymore because I'm using the tools and I can see that they can't do what I
Uh-huh.
can do.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like if you look at the new open AI commercials, they're so human. And like it's so funny because we see so much AI video out there, and it's, oh my God, look at that. Like I can't believe that was made by Sora and da, da, da. And we're all, it's kind of this Twitch experience of wow. And but then those spots came out, those open AI spots came out, and they're just like so human. The music, the people, the acting, the way it's shot, like you could just feel it. And so hopefully we're unique in our ability to do that. I feel like we are, because that it's something that comes from the heart, not from the intellect. But we'll see.
But someone still has to prompt and control. Like when I'm talking about
Mhm.
the humans coming in, it's not necessarily that it's just our creativity, but it's how we direct it.
Yes.
And I think that
Yeah.
and even that ad, having the ability to create those ads and have an ad, like think of how many more companies now can have a commercial. Like couldn't
Mm,
have afforded
mm,
having,
right.
pay an actor and have
Hmm.
a studio and have a photographer and
Hmm.
a videographer and makeup and so I think that it opens up and it unlocks
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
people there's how much stuff people were creating before is like this, and now with AI it's like you can
Hmm.
create anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that's yeah.
It's interesting because like the other thing that's so interesting is that there's a trust piece that you only get with humans, right? So like if I'm writing strategy for a founder and I go and I meet with the founder and the rest of the leadership team and I present a strategy, I'm basically saying, I believe you should change the trajectory of your entire company based on what's written on this piece of paper, right? And they're looking at me, I'm sure, thinking, can I trust this person? If this was just, oh, here's what Claude said, that's not something you're going to be like, well, Claude said this, let's change the trajectory of our whole, it's like, I want to know that the person that helped all these other founders change the trajectory of their company and has seen, this succeed and fail. I want to know that person stands by this. And I think for all of those things that you're saying, like, okay, there's going to be so many more use cases, so many more things that people could make with AI. You also kind of need somebody, a human right there saying, you can trust me that I think this is a good move for you and your business to go forward with this.
10,000%. I mean, the choice, right? Is like, did I trust the person who made the choice? Like,
Yeah.
because there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's out there for AI that's crap. People are
Yeah.
going to produce a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
People and consumers have to make the choice too. Do I consume it? Do I like it?
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, AI is definitely the biggest game changer I think I've seen in my career. I thought it was like the iPad. I thought like that was very early.
Hmm.
And I think AI is one of those things where it was like it came in all of a sudden in a spike, and then it was
Yeah.
here and
Yep.
everything had to change.
Yeah. I think it is going to be the biggest change of our lifetime.
Yeah. I know that I just want to say thank you, Josh, for this time. I know it feels kind of abrupt, but I know I want to be cognizant of your time.
Yeah.
Um, and this was a wonderful conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for like a whole nother hour though, to get all of the nitty gritty like knowledge that you have. But I will tell everyone, if you're not following Josh on LinkedIn, that you should. Are you on other places? Like, are you on Instagram? Are there other places we should follow you and reach
No,
out to
just
you?
just LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will definitely continue to follow you, and I look forward to continuing to peruse your socials. And I hope this isn't the last conversation that you and I have, because I'd love to meet you hopefully in person one day and
Oh yeah.
learn
You know,
more
I
about
gotta
gold
say,
front.
like one thing I noticed that you're good at is you do in person events. You go to things where actual humans are there. So I want you to guide me on how to do more of that for my business because there's a lot of stuff going on in San Francisco. So maybe I could learn from you in that area.
Yeah. I actually really love seeing people in person because, Zoom is like, it's so different. You can't really, it's like we're talking heads.
Hmm.
You can't you can't feel the energy in the same way. So I
Hmm.
do love in-person events, even though I get nervous and scared because
Uh-huh.
a little bit, right? Because you're like in Zoom all day and then you're meeting people. You're like, oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
But it turns out every time to
What do
be
I
worth
do
it.
with my body?
I,
Never.
do I move my arms anymore? I don't know. Josh, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on Building Iconic and tell us about how you built this amazing agency, Goldfront, and about yourself and just your point of view in the world and how you look at AI, because this was awesome. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you even more and I'll have you at one of my AI dinners.
Okay, good. I will be there, and yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to follow your journey. It's been really fun to see you start your business and succeed.
Thank you. And you're one of the things, you're one of the people who has helped me succeed, you know?
Uh,
Not the business books. I just follow you.
mm,
Just kidding.
well,
I should read the business book.
that's very kind of you, and yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me
Thanks,
on.
Josh. Yeah, it was a pleasure.